Hey there. Welcome to the Gyro Step, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast, proudly a part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network and GSPN. I am one of your hosts, Ty Windisch. I am joined, as always, really hasn't been as always lately, but I'm very glad to be back with Rohan Katti, and we are presented by PrizePicks. I'm glad about that, too. Rohan, happy Wednesday. Bit of a weird recording day for us. How's it going?
I'm doing well, not too bad. We're back in a routine now, which is good.
Yeah.
August was such a weird month for me, but we're back. We're ready. We're ready to talk about the hard-hitting, gripping topics of the Milwaukee Bucks and the NBA in this podcast.
Yeah, and this week we're going to be talking more NBA on GSPN After Dark, our GSPN Premium exclusive to our paid subscribers feed. We're going to be doing later today, probably will go up tomorrow, a little bit of an over-under on the Western Conference, and then maybe you'll hear the Eastern Conference over-unders from us next week on this feed. Who can say? But if you want the full picture, make sure you head to gspn.info, subscribe over there for a mere $8 per month, and get a bunch of exclusive content, get commercial-free Gyro Step, as well as all of our other podcasts in one convenient place, written content, and more. So make sure you check that out for more NBA, NFL, MLB, and even more content. We had like reunions for recording artists. There's going to be like a Wisconsin State fandom thing if the Brewers ever actually clinch this playoff spot that they've been so close to clinching for weeks now.
Magic numbers 2, right?
I think it's 1. The Cubs lost yesterday.
Oh, so it's 1. They just need a win or a Cubs loss.
So it could be in the worst, most anticlimactic way. They could know in the game that they clinched despite doing nothing themselves in the last couple of days with 2 Cubs losses. The Cubs have a day game before the Brewers have a night game.
Well, didn't they beat the Phillies in game 1?
Yeah, I said in like the last 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
When they find out, it's like, okay, we did nothing since game 1, and congrats to us. If the Brewers don't clinch and the Cubs win the NL Central, it's Newmock's fault because he was planning a podcast for post Brewers clinch. I just want to get that out there. I just want to make sure everyone knows. Make sure it's Newmock's fault.
Not our fault.
The Cubs
it's not Adam or Andrew's fault.
Or the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yep.
If the Cubs go 11-0 or whatever, and the Brewers go 0-11 or whatever, however many games they have left, that is on Newmock. So everyone remember that. But today we are going to talk on this podcast about the Bucks, and I feel like it's just still kind of circulating the idea of the Brook Lopez succession plan, if there is one, or what it should be. So we're going to talk about that, and then kind of evaluate the Bucks' top G League players. And by this, we don't have a Wisconsin Herd roster yet. That'll come later. There's still the G League draft that needs to happen. But we do have 4 Exhibit 10 players who will be like, the Bucks premium, I guess, G Leaguers. They're still G League players. They can still get poached, but these guys come to training camp. They get a bonus to show up and report to the Herd after. So we know 4 of those players, and we know the 2 ways. So we can talk about those as well. There's big men on both, or at least one big man on both groups. But let's start with the Brook Lopez part of it all, even though I know you're excited to share some fun facts about some of the Exhibit 10 guys, Rohan. So I think they keep trying, and we'll talk about, some more of these like big men that they've brought in. I think 3 total between the Exhibit 10 and the 2-way. Like, they're still exploring developmental big men to a certain extent, but it just hasn't worked, which I don't think is surprising. I think it's pretty unlikely that, I'm trying to think, have we seen, since Hassan Whiteside, a big man come up through like being an everyday G League player and then be like an impactful NBA player?
I think it is Whiteside.
There's obviously, there are G League wins, right? We've seen those. I don't even know. It's harder now, I think, because to have a true one, because like, would you count AJ Green? He was never technically a Herd player. He was a Bucks 2-way who then got promoted. So I don't know if most people would consider someone like that. But now that there are the 3 2-ways and everything, I think it's less likely for there to be like true G Leaguers who actually are G League players and then get NBA spots. I don't think it's happened very often at all with the advent of the 2-ways and especially the extra 2-way spot. But there's obviously been success stories more recently than Whiteside. But the big men it's more difficult because size plays at the G League level so well that, and just the NBA level, that those guys tend to get the roster spots and the two-way spots first. So there's just not really loose big men. And even Whiteside, even back then with Whiteside, like, I think everyone knew he was talented. There were some other things going on, and still are, with Hassan Whiteside generally, that kind of made him available in that sense. But I just think they're going to keep trying. Every team is going to keep trying. I think overall, though, when we talk about the Brook Lopez succession plan, the odds of an Exhibit 10 guy, as excited as we may get talking about them in less than an hour, the odds of them becoming an NBA starter or even just any NBA player feel very low to me.
Yeah, the only way you can really do that is if it's someone just from out of nowhere, right? Someone who didn't go through the traditional U.S. college system, someone who's just trying to, like some other type of story than that, right? That's the only way you can do it, like an unheralded player, someone who's not really known, trying to make their way, and they end up being a success. But again,
so you're an Ibubachi guy is what I'm getting from this.
I see how you would think that from what I was saying. However, scouting is just too good. Like the NBA is just too good at what they do, and the personnel are way too good at what they do to let these guys slip through the cracks. Like they'll find guys in random corners of the world. Anything's possible in that regard. So even that is less and less likely to happen. There's like two ways that you can go about a Brook Lopez succession plan, right? You can go through a development, you can draft a guy, you can find a guy, sign him like a young player, right? You can develop, or you could trade for one. You could get like a solid-ish late 20s player who's able to, you can grow on the Giannis timeline and be like that, right? One of those is way more difficult than the other. Actually, is it? They're both really difficult.
I think one the Bucks have shown they can do with other positions, and that's the second one. I mean, I think neither is easy, but I do think when you look at like draft and develop or sign and develop versus almost just basically saying we almost can't fill it until it is a hole. Like we maybe can't pre-fill this, but we'll address it then. I think given the way the Bucks have been able to add players over the last, not even just last year, but like last 3 years, that's almost the only logical path to me. And I get that no one likes that, the uncertainty, the going into an offseason, right? Like whether Brook were to retire or whatever happens, like, knowing that you'll need a center and just knowing that like you have like 3 weeks to figure it out more or less with the available player pool and everything else, like that's not a good feeling. They've basically had that with a 2-guard for 3 consecutive years, though. And every year, I think they've gotten a pretty good answer. And I think I think that is something that's not going to keep me up at night, knowing that whenever post-Brook, and we don't know when post-Brook Loving, he's 1 year left, but he obviously has re-signed with the Bucks a couple of times now, could certainly re-sign or extend again. We'll see what happens. But I think, because the way they add players now, whether it's a trade or just free agency, which has been great to them lately, it's their big, I guess, like chip for players has been playing time and win a championship. That's what's been the difference for them. Like, you kind of can't get a Gary Trent Jr. for the minimum if you already have a really stacked team, right? Like, Gary Trent Jr. did not want to go to the Celtics and be their 9th man, because you're not going to get the payday still. Like maybe you have a better chance to win the title in that situation. Sure. Like that's, I'm sure everyone wants to win a title. That's great. He's still on a really good team, but he also now gets to come in on that cheap deal and start and be a really core player of what should be a very good team. And then you can kind of try to have your cake and eat it too, right? And I think like if you go into a free agency and Brook's gone and there's some centers out there, I think the Bucks will have a very good pitch unless someone can pay them significantly more of just saying, hey, you can come in, you can start, you can be a really important player. Look at what we've done for all of these other guys who have gone on to sign for much bigger contracts than we were able to give them. We've also kept, we kept Bobby. Like, we love to keep you too, but if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like, I almost think that's the only reasonable way forward unless someone just totally falls to them in the draft. But you look back at the last several drafts, and it's like they have not had many opportunities to take bigs because of your point. Bigs just go early. I mean, we thought they would have a chance to take Kel'el Ware at 23. He went at 14. And I just
don't remind me.
I know. Like Yves Missy went a couple of picks, or was it one pick or a couple of picks? But like, like we never know what trading
pick
up
before the Bucks is the Pelicans.
Like, would you trade up to take Yves Missy? I don't know. I don't know what that would even look like. That's a whole other complicated thing. As much as I don't want to end up like the Pelicans, and that's the real fear, right? The Pelicans basically tried to do this, and now their center depth is Daniel Tice and Yves Missy, which does not feel very good. I don't know if it's possible to preload that spot for this team.
I don't think it is. And they've tried other methods too, like your Vetman signings, like you were mentioning. It doesn't really work. Like Robin Lopez,
Serge Ibaka.
It doesn't really work. Who's the last great Bucks backup center? I have an answer.
You gonna say Boogie?
I was gonna say John Henson.
John Henson was pretty darn good. I mean, that first year Robin Lopez felt good, and then we just never saw him in the playoffs.
Yeah, he also fell off a cliff in terms of his playing ability.
That year or after that year?
I think it was in that year.
Was it? I just remember him like hitting threes and doing tea time. But
I don't remember him actually being that good.
He was
better than he was last year.
Yeah, for sure. We just didn't see him much. Which
those first 3 months with John Henson backing up Brook Lopez, incredible.
Yeah, I mean that having a Henson type player would be huge. But I feel like
congrats on your retirement, by the way, John.
So I think someone just asked him to confirm. He's been in media for 5 years. I think we knew, but congrats on the scoop, whoever reported that one.
It was the podcast he was on.
I guess, you know what? Like, Tristan Thompson keeps coming back and signing contracts. Maybe it's good to get some clarity.
Which is insane. Insane to me. This guy was doing ESPN during the playoffs like 3 years ago, and then he just keeps coming back to the Cavs, and I wonder why.
He's got the deer antler spray.
Yeah, he's got the Al Horford, and he got suspended for it.
The piss is red hot. Yeah, I mean, you can see. I mean, it clearly worked out for him as a business decision.
He's like the one guy where it's like, okay, I guess it worked. Usually you see these guys get suspended for PEDs, and it's like, really? You were taking PEDs to do this? But it's like, for double T, it's like, yeah, it actually worked.
Going to be played in the NBA in 2025. Like, you got the good stuff.
Yeah. But that type of role where it's like you sign like even a Boogie. Boogie was all right.
Yeah.
It was an emergency situation. It was COVID year. You need to be able to make these signings. It didn't really hurt them too much that they didn't re-sign him.
No. The thing about Henson, and he must have gotten hurt that year. He only played 14 games with Brook. That last season he was on the Bucks, or he was in the trade. That must have been why he was in the trade to get.
He was in the George Hill trade.
Yeah. But it was pretty early in the year. And he didn't. I think he also got hurt, though, because he did not play with the Cavs after that. He did not come back until the next year. He was playing less than 14 minutes per game. And I think that's the other issue with even the idea of the draft and develop is I think fans would go crazy. There's no minutes for backup centers on this team when they're healthy. And you could say, oh, but in the playoffs, they needed another option, or against this team. In an 82-game season, you don't usually wholesale change your rotation to match up with a team. Maybe here or there, slightly, but most of the time you've got your rotation, you're going to play with it. The Bucks have 48 total minutes per game at the 5, and then another 48 at the 4. Giannis is going to play a lot of minutes, hopefully a little less, but 30-plus minutes.
Let's say 32.
Sure. Brook Lopez, probably going to play around 30 minutes. Bobby Portis, probably going to play mid-20s at least. So that is 80-some minutes. And there's going to be other guys who play at the 4 as well, whether it's Taurean Prince, Chris Middleton, whoever else would be sliding up. Chris Livingston. We'll see. Yeah, hey. That pretty much fills up your 96 minutes, though, or comes very close. So John Henson was playing 13 a game when they had Ibaka. Like, he had it is pretty bad most of the time, but he did not play very much. Like, there's just not even a role. So that's also why I think it's difficult for them to get actually like any sort of interesting prospect at the center position to sign with them, because you're basically going to either be on the bench just in case or be with the Wisconsin herd. And again, like, they got Dragan Bender, like they've gotten some guy, he was actually NBA, but they've gotten some G Leaguer / fringe NBA guys to come and do that. I mean, they had Christian Wood way back when too, was not really a center defensively at any point, but there's not really a role. And I don't think you can argue, unless you had like a very talented young backup center, which again is very hard to find those guys, that there is a reason to play them over a Bobby Portis. As divisive as he is, like, Bobby Portis is better than these young fringe NBA centers that they've had, pretty clearly.
Yeah, think about what's going to happen with Tyler Smith this year, right?
Excuse me.
Not a lot of opportunity. It doesn't help that he's mostly a 4 than a 5, especially when he's young. But in terms of being like a young big man on the Bucks roster, he's still not going to have a ton of opportunity, even though, I don't know, man, people were saying he could start at the 5.
We're never going to let that one go. How ridiculous.
Incredible from Jake Fisher. But like, just being able to have a skill set that's ready-made for the NBA, right? Like, you're a tall guy who can shoot. That's something that's a value, right? That is skill, that is value that you bring to an NBA roster immediately. He's still not going to have an avenue to play because of the reasons that you mentioned, like because of Brook, because of Giannis, because of, again, these are good reasons. And because of guys like Taurean Prince, Chris Livingston, stuff like that. Like, there's just not an opportunity, even if you have a young guy on your roster who's you project to be playing for you at big minutes in the future. Yeah,
I think the interesting thing is going to be, could they get beyond lucky and have one of these, unheralded players pop, or is it just going to come down to, figure it out when it comes up, which I think their best chips that they can cash any offseason, at least I'll say in free agency. Trades, it doesn't matter as much, but in free agency, like, their number one selling point for the rest of the Giannis era, most likely, unless they do a very hard reset one of these years, which is possible, is going to be, hey, we'll give you a vet min, which is the same as everyone else's vet min and almost as much as the mini MLE, and you can come in and start next to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, that's the carrot. You're going to get easy buckets. You're going to be wide open. You can focus on defense and be part of a great team. Like, we've proven this out that it works. Come join up. And I think they'll be able to find a good player. Theoretically, the problem is, for this position more than the 2 guard, there's just not a lot. Like, across the league, there's just not a lot of skilled bigs, especially if you want them to shoot. And I guess that's the other thing. And we've gone back and forth about this in the last year. How much do you think this player, the Brook successor, should be able to shoot?
I think at least mid-range ability.
Yeah, at least a little bit of gravity.
Yeah, like you can make a jumper, like you can make a shot outside the restricted area.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't have to be what you're traditionally like doing or good at. Like, you could be like a rim runner, like a screens out of roller, stuff like that. But like, can you make a mid ranger every once in a while? Like, I think that's the bare minimum, right?
There's got to be something so they're just not unguarded all the time on offense.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you have to be able to, even if you get a pass from Giannis, if he's at the rim, that he's triple teamed or quadruple teamed or quintuple teamed, as he tends to be.
Yeah.
And you have a little bit of space, and it's like kind of on the block or something like that. Can you make a shot? Like, can you be trusted to make a shot in that? And I don't think that's that difficult.
No, I think there's
like,
not that many players
my measuring stick is like, can Nick Richards do this?
Nick Richards. What a fun name to throw around. Yeah, like, can you use the glass? Can you just throw up like some sort of a little floater or layup runner off the glass? Like, let's do something. Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm at too.
Can you pass to someone else?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously nice. I almost think it's like less important for the Bucks because teams are going to be like, we're just not going to leave Giannis, Gary Trent, Dame, or Chris. Like, go ahead and pass it to a guy who's not open. Like, that's fine. I think there has to be some sort of scoring. Like, can you drive with the ball? That could also work potentially. Like, they have to have some more offensive skill though than just, I can roll to the rim and finish. Like, there has to be something more. Like, can I go move at all with the ball? Actually, in my possession, can I make a jumper? Can I make a runner? A three would be great. I just think it's going to be difficult to find, but we'll see if they can do it.
Yeah, it's like, what can you do? And like when we were doing preparing for the draft and we were talking about big guys, I had Kello where above Yves Missi because it's like, what does Yves Missi do on offense? Like because he's a rim runner. It's not, again, these are rookies and none of them even play for the Bucks, so it's like, what's the point? But he's a traditional just on offense, just a guy who's gonna like roll to the rim, catch lobs, stuff like that, which is good. That's great. Good for you. Like, you're also project to be a really good defender, so that's good.
Yeah.
But can you do something else on offense? Like, I think you can even give up a little bit of the defensive.
Yeah.
To be able to do something more on offense.
Well, I think too they'll look at, like, if you're just more athletic, then that opens up more kind of defensive options for Doc. So even if you're worse, at least you're more flexible. Like somewhere on the spectrum between Brook and Bobby in terms of like actual defensive skill, hopefully closer to Brook, but then with added athleticism, that could add a whole new dimension as well. But I do think the offense, I don't think they could just or should ever just start a non-threatening offensive player. I do think that would have a big negative impact.
I think you can get away with it more than ever.
More than ever, yes, but I still don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. But you were also starting like Malik Beasley.
Yeah, I mean that's not a negative on offense.
It wasn't the postseason. And the second half of the regular season.
Yeah.
You still did it. And then mostly
I wasn't caping for Beasley either.
Yeah, but it wasn't like glaring. It was kind of glaring. It was fairly glaring.
Yeah. Like, let's not compound things any further. I would not want Yves Missi to start for the Bucks. No offense.
No, not even a little bit.
Or like to even be the center of the future, just because I'm not seeing the path toward more offense. Like, I think we went through this phase where we talked about that because of the Dame spacing. And again, I agree with you. It's more possible than ever for sure. I don't want to see. I mean, they even leave Brook Lopez open now and just say like, all right, 35% 3-point shooter, beat us. But at least like he's gonna try. And there's some games where he absolutely does. Yeah. But that's better than just like not doing anything with the ball and just like, okay, I'm gonna just pass it or try and DHO with someone else. So it's a complicated question. I actually am a little excited about one of the young players on the roster, but we're not going to start with him. We're going to start with the two ways, which I'm excited about two of the two ways, actually, but neither of them are centers. But we're really going to start with our friends at PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, where it's just you against the numbers, picking more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections to watch the winnings roll in. Remember, it's still September. We're a little more than halfway through, but we got a couple of football weeks left. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win on PrizePicks every week in September. If you have like the perfect 4 or 5 plays on your slate, why don't you just go ahead, sprinkle in that one Caleb Williams passing yard. Guy doesn't look great. He's getting like around 100 per week. So one is very attainable for Caleb. If it was one touchdown,
is very feasible.
If it was one touchdown, I'd say maybe let's think about that. But one passing yard, he can do it. Not even the Bears are passing for 0 yards. I say this now. I'm not calling this my lock of the week, but I think he can continue to do it. Let's put it that way. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Unfortunately, there's probably not going to be any like Liam Robbins or James Akinjo picks, but there are several hundreds of athletes across several sports, especially now as the sports calendar starts to heat up. We got football. We still got basketball trudging on from the summer. We got more basketball coming. We still got MLB. So there's so many different player projections. You want to look at Josh Allen's passing yards. I'm looking at Alvin Kamara everything. He's on my normal fantasy team as well. My goodness, I wish I could just do 5 different Alvin Kamara more thans. I think he'd do all of them. But until then, I'll fill up my roster with other players. You can too. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code Eurostep to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code Eurostep on PrizePicks to get that $50 instantly. All you got to do is play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay. Which two-way do you want to talk about first?
Which two-way do I want to talk about first? That's a good question.
Should we do the one that I teased is not a good player? I hope that he proves me wrong. Anzik Pashinix?
Yeah, he's not very good, is he? He's good at one thing.
Rebounder?
I was going to say getting dunked on by Thanasis.
Oh, yeah, he has done that. I don't really get this one. He's 28, so not exactly anything of the future. Has just really not been good at any level thus far, which again is not ideal in what you're looking for from your basketball players. I'm trying to pull up his G League stats. I think he actually has not actually played that much of the G League. I had NBA stats, which are also not great. But I just don't really understand. Even with some of these guys on Exhibit 10s, I think would make more sense. He is 7'2", so I guess if you're going to talk about what he's good at, height is number one here.
He's very good at being tall.
He is. With the Capital City Go-Go in 2019-20, he scored 10 points per game on 56% shooting, 5 rebounds, 1.3 assists to 1.7 turnovers. Did not shoot through. He actually attempted, probably like 2 threes, 65% from from free throw, excuse me. So just like a pretty productive player, but also like you should be if you're 7'2" at the G League. Like that's a real standout G League height. And I don't know why he hasn't played as much there lately. Like it's not like he's been playing a ton of NBA minutes either. Hopefully he's not like against playing at the G League, or I don't think he'll enjoy his Milwaukee Bucks tenure very much. But I don't see it here. I try to be an optimistic person. He's played 28 NBA games for Washington, but also again, like he's been overseas. These have not been in recent years. Actually played 16 minutes per game in 1920 for them back when he was 24, and 52% from the field, no threes, 4 rebounds, more turnovers than assists again. So that's been a negative ratio when he's played in the NBA and in the G League. He's just big. Like that's really all I've got for his
I think
skills.
I think this is proof of what we were talking about earlier in terms of there's not a great crop of big guys we can get at this level. For like a two-way or something like that, because I truly think he is the emergency bit. That's what makes sense to me. I mean,
it's terrifying.
It's not going to be Tyler Smith. I don't think he just can't. He can't hang at that level yet, and that's fine. You're what is he, 19 years old or something? Yeah, playing with the Ignite. Like, yeah, that's understandable. Like, no, that's nothing against Tyler Smith, but also, I don't know if this guy can do it.
I don't think he can. So he just played in ACB as Spain, right?
Yeah.
He was 13 points per game over there. Still not really shooting threes. He attempts a few every year, but he shot 10%. So not looking great there, even on the shorter line. 56% from free throw. So it was about 13 and 4 rebounds. Again, had a negative assist to turnover ratio. Like, was a starter. I mean, was like a full-time player for Zunder Palencia, which is not one of the premier ACB teams. I'm going to go out there and guess.
Nope.
They were 6-28. So yeah, it wasn't great for them. I'm a little surprised here, honestly, that he came in and immediately got the two-way, and this is changeable. Like they could if they believe in another player more than him, there's no like cap penalty to just waiving one two-way and signing another ahead of sometime in January is when it locks, I think. Yeah, I think you're probably right that it's like, okay, he's a proven pro. Again, though, like not really.
I don't think he's a proven pro.
I mean, like he's played professional basketball.
He's proven that he's played professional basketball, yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen the tape, but yeah. I hope he doesn't.
That's what he's got a leg up on Tyler Smith.
Got to cover him with the herd. I assume he's going to be mostly with the herd. Yeah, I hope there's an open-ish competition for this two-way spot in camp with the other two bigs we're going to talk about, because I am not a big believer here that anything is going to change now that he's 28 versus 24 and he's going to be able to be like a productive NBA player. He's just big.
Yeah, he really is just big.
Turns 29 in
again, I don't really have much to say about him. Like, his career highlight is literally getting dunked on by Thanasis.
I mean, we could all aspire to that.
Yeah. I'd get dunked on by Thanasis.
This agent is like locked into like just the funniest group of players.
Okay, who is it?
He's got Latvia locked down. Because he's also got Davis Bertans. I'm assuming Arturs Kalnitis. I'm assuming it's the Baltic Sports Agency. So okay, he's got his lane, but he did not get Porzingis, which is a huge L.
That is.
If there's one you want to
get, it's him.
Yeah, you kind of missed out. He's also got Gabriel Lundberg, who is was the only Denmark-born player to be in the NBA. He did play. He played 4 games with Phoenix. So, anyway, yeah. What'd you say? Go Denmark?
I said good for Denmark.
Yeah, they got 4 games. But yeah, I don't know. I feel kind of bad. Like I try to usually see the bright spot with young, but I guess also it's not really a young player.
No,
just a two-way eligible player.
Yep.
I mean, I guess. Like if maybe he's just a good screener and it's just like we want this guy in the herd all year to help the young guards. I guess I could see that.
Plus, like, yeah, size really does help in the G League. So.
Yeah, like it's AJ Johnson can throw this guy some absurd alley-oops.
Mm-hmm. Do we know if he can catch lobs?
No. Don't know anything about him.
That's the issue.
I assume if he was really good at catching lobs, he might have stuck somewhere else before now.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Who should we talk about next for two-way? We got 2 options.
You want to do Stan the Man, and then we can finish up with Summer League darling Ryan Rollins. I almost said Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. We got Deadpool on our Summer League squad.
Now we're talking. It's just funny because I feel like...
That would be fun.
Go ahead. This is like the exact opposite of the other guy we just talked about.
Why do you say that?
Like, actually had intriguing NBA flashes with the Pistons to some extent. Broke his ankle, so wasn't at Summer League, and I think probably made it tough for him to in the offseason as well, right? If he's not able to work out and show teams anything. But last year, 24 games with the Pistons, didn't score very much, but had some really nice defensive clips and shot 45% from 3. Also not a big dribbler, like not a playmaker, also has a negative assist turnover ratio in his time with Detroit and did not shoot the ball as well in the G League. So I wouldn't call him a lockdown shooter, but like a very good, it has shown promising defensive potential, has shown that he's got a shot that can work. Again, not like a proven shooter, but I think has shown more and is younger, is 25 years old now, and turned that this year, so won't be 26 until April of next year. I just think like I look at Moutier and think, okay, this is the kind of player you're excited about on a two-way. Did not get much opportunity, like wasn't one of the heralded Pistons young players, was undrafted, but earned a spot, I thought played well in his role, and now comes into a team that always needs more wing defense, and I think has a real shot to, not play, but impress some people with the herd and then maybe earn a spot down the road.
100%, 100%. Like, this is a guy who you can see, like, there's a projection to say, like, you can see a path where it's like, oh, I see how he can fit in with the Bucks, right?
Yeah.
I can see how he could play next to Giannis. Damian Giannis. Like, you can see that. You can't really see it with some other players, but you can see it with Stan, right? Like, there's an opportunity. There's wing defense. There's the ability to really like size up and size down at multiple positions. There's that flexibility. There's that versatility. I see it. Is that actually going to materialize? Who knows? But you at least need a chance, right? And I think he has a chance.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I think he's 6'6", got a little bit of size, not a ton, but some at least. And yeah, I just think I think is a lot closer to potentially being an NBA player. And then also on that note, Ryan
has
Rollins,
been an NBA player.
and has been I mean, again, so AP also was, but more recently has been an NBA player. We'll say that.
Yeah.
But he's not 7'2". If Stanley Umude was 7'2" and did everything else he did, it would not be a Buck.
No.
Would be probably the most fascinating player in the league to watch if he played and moved the exact same way.
That would be really fun.
It would not be good for his ankles either, I'm sure. And then we have Ryan Rollins, who was a draft pick, second rounder, but a 44th overall pick, and kind of was known as a defensive player, had some off-court issues earlier in his career with Washington, I believe that came up, but now was added as a Bucks two-way last season, and kind of was the forgotten man coming into camp to a certain extent. Like, we were excited about Ty, excited about the rookies, but really stole the show, was the Bucks' best player, not camp, excuse me, in Summer League. I think, without a doubt, was the Bucks' best player when you look at both-way play during Summer League, and now was able to hold his spot, in large part probably because of that. Has not really shown a ton at the NBA level, has not just gotten to play much at all, NBA or G League, but I think if you talked about all of the Exhibit 10 and two-way guys, I think you look at Rollins, obviously, and I think that's kind of, and I think there's another player where it's not the same kind of thing, but a different thing, like probably available because of the shoplifting accusation, we'll say, to make sure, we're above board on that, but, available for a strange reason, an off-court reason, not related to play, didn't just, I think, totally wow anyone. Also had, I think, also an ankle injury or some injury that kept him out a lot of his Warriors tenure as well, since he was drafted there. So did not get consistent playing time anywhere at the NBA or G League level, really, and was able to play pretty well, I'd say, with the herd in the last half of last year, shot the ball better than expected, and then really took advantage of the Summer League opportunity. This is a player I think could be a real NBA player. And by that, I mean, like, helping you off the bench, right? Like the role DeLon Wright has now in a year or two, I could see Ryan Rollins playing somewhere. He's shown flashes of being more. I want to be realistic here, but this is not a player who, went over to Europe and had middling numbers on a bad team. This is a player who has not gotten to play much, is still 22 years old, turned 22 in July. So a very young player to have been on 3 NBA teams already, and
feels way older.
Yeah, has had experiences as someone way older for sure. I think real opportunity here, not what the Bucks are looking for. This is a different conversation than the Brook Lopez succession plan. But this, again, the kind of two-way where you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, it's more or less a free flyer on a player who was believed enough to be taken in the first half of the second round. Little PR phrasing there, but still, I think there is a big difference between going in the 40s and going in the late 50s. And has really impressed in his Bucks org tenure so far. So again, this is why it's like, does this, I guess, show the difference between any other position in bigs when it comes to these developmental spots? Like what you have to settle for when you're getting a big man two-way versus the kind of guards and wings you can get in the door?
I think it really does, because Ryan Rollins is a very capable player, and we've seen that, right? Like you were saying, we've seen the flashes, but we've actually just seen the production, whether it's at the NBA level, the G League level, Summer League level. I just kept going down there, but it was like he's capable of doing it. Like you can see him rising above the other players, and when you get to the lower competitions, it's like, oh yeah, this guy's clearly better than these other players.
Yeah.
And you can see that. And it makes it even that much more unfortunate for him that there's just so many good to like decent playable guards in the league.
Yeah.
Where a guy like Ryan Rollins, who has that experience, is just waiting in the wings. He's just there. He's just on a two-way with the Bucks and doesn't really have a path to playing time aside from injury. So it really does showcase the difference between like the depth of the levels of players you have at the different positions.
It's just not a lot of 7-foot humans in the world. Rollins with the Herd last season in 11 games, averaged 29.5 minutes per game, scored 16.5 points on 43% from the field and 39%, almost 39.7% from three. Only 68.8% from free throw, which is a little weirdly low for him, but it's also, that's probably like less than 30 total attempts, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. 2.9 assists to 2.5 turnovers, was more of an off-ball player with Ty Washington on the ball quite a bit, which again, that's not going to be the case this year. I'm sure A.J. Johnson will be on ball more, but I would assume Rollins also has really earned the opportunity to be more on the ball this year after coming in late last season, and also averaged 1.3 steals, 0.9 blocks as a 6'3" player, to 2.5 turnovers. So I think a guy who has a shot to like assists, steals, and blocks, like easily double or maybe even triple up his turnovers per game, like a good distributor who's also a pretty disruptive defensive player. I think easily right now, to me, going to be the best player who I would expect to play for the Herd next season. I mean, they could add someone really good on the G League draft again, like they did with Joe Wieskamp, but a couple of years ago, but I would expect Rollins even to be better than someone like that. Like I think his defensive upside is real. It's limited by the 6'3" part, but 6'3" is not 6'1". Like that's actually, like he's playing 2 and probably some 3 for the Herd last season. It's not huge at the NBA level, but it's not disqualifyingly small. Even like Lindell Wigginton at 6'1", it's just a lot harder to be 6'1" than 6'3" and make it as a defensive first player.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier when you're 6'3", right?
Yeah.
I felt so seen when you said 6'3" is not 6'1". I'm like, oh, he's talking about me.
Listen, man, I got it worse than you, so don't even worry about that.
Oh wait, I'm canonically 6'2". I forget.
Yeah, so congrats.
It doesn't really affect me.
Yeah, you're safe.
Yeah, I guess you're talking about yourself then, because you're canonically 6'1".
Yeah, Jordan's 6'5" and Newmock's 6'8".
Newmock's the next Bucks big prospect. Newmock's a 7+ footer. But no, there's definitely like the defensive upside is there. I think like Ryan Rollins, for being 22, just seems like a fairly well-rounded and complete player.
Yeah. And despite not having gotten to play he's only played, I didn't close it. Like in his career thus far, 2 seasons with 3 teams, has only logged like less than 40 G League games and has not played very many at the NBA level either. So I think for him, just being able to play consistently with the Herd this season is going to be really good for him to show what he can do. And then we'll see from there. Again, this is kind of, I think with the two-way guys, for me, it's more about you're trying to earn a spot for the next season. Like if DeLon Wright is going to move on, can you put yourself in the conversation to be like basically in that role the season after? Basically what Ty Washington was trying to do, and unfortunately did not end up being able to do, like I want to be the backup next year. That's what I think the ceiling is for Rollins. He has a great year. You could look at him and maybe he plays a little bit with the Bucks this year, but it's also, is he able to factor into Milwaukee's plans as they're building out their rotation for 25, 26? God, that feels crazy to say out loud.
Yeah, that doesn't exist. It's too
well, the Bucks build like it doesn't exist, so that's good.
Should we move on to some Exhibit 10 guys?
Yeah, we have. 2 of these guys are familiar names. I actually want to start with James Akinjo, who I think is maybe the least covered out of all because he is a small 6'1" guard. So best of luck, James Akinjo. It's going to be hard to prove yourself. Was basically a backup point guard for the Herd last season. Was just a true Herd player. Was not an Exhibit 10. I could be wrong, but I think he was just a straight up Herd player. Because they traded for him, so he definitely was.
He was with the Kings for training camp last year.
Yeah, so he was a Stockton player who the Herd traded for. Did not have a great start to the year with Stockton. In 14 games with the Herd, 9.7 points per game on 51% from the field and 57% from three. So basically he was red hot from the three-point line in his Herd tenure. Also 3.9 assists to 1.7 turnovers. Akinjo is just like a spark plug off the bench, like a very fun, capable offensive point guard. Had some okay defensive moments as well, like is not going to be a total pushover there. But again, when you're 6'1", it's very difficult to be a good to elite, at least on the NBA level defender. You can do it at the G League, but that's going to be the number one thing holding back Akinjo, I would think. And obviously we'll have to see, in his 2 stops before the Herd, he shot 33 and 37% from three, respectively. So the 57 is a huge outlier, and obviously would be for any player. We'll see where that number settles in. That's going to be big for Akinjo going forward, but a good distributor, like good slasher as well. So excited to watch him play again. Actually shot much better from three than he did from two, which is, again, kind of speaks to just how much of an outlier that 3-point percentage was. But excited to watch him. Just really good guard depth, I think, at the Herd this year between Rollins, Akinjo, and then AJ Johnson, who I think, again, will be playing down there. That's a lot of fun guard play that you have. I mean, Akinjo could get poached, but more or less locked in, at least to start the year.
Yeah, like he's a guy who had a defined role with the Herd. He's someone who's familiar with the team, the system, the staff. It just makes sense for carryover, right? Like someone who's familiar, someone who knows this team, someone who's capable passer, which is going to be very, very good at the G League level, especially when you project to have like 2 young guys there a lot in Tyler Smith and AJ Johnson. So I think he brings a lot of value to the org. Maybe not necessarily in terms of like his actual play or like for where he projects to be.
Yeah, like his Bucks prospects is not what we're really concerned with here.
Yeah, it's how can he aid in the development of your young guys, and I think he's a capable player of doing that.
Yeah. You pick. I've been picking too much. Who do you want to talk about next? We got 3 more options.
Let's talk about Liam Robbins.
Yes, there's a chance Liam Robbins. There's a chance could be an NBA backup center someday.
There's a chance, and you know why, Ty?
Why?
It's not just because he's from Waukesha.
From Waukesha, went to high school in Davenport, Iowa. Went to 3 different colleges. Midwest guy, I would say that.
Oh yeah, but the reason that there's a chance is because we know nothing about him. In terms of
we know almost nothing about him.
In terms of his professional basketball career, it hasn't really existed. This
is a fascinating player. Is a 7-footer, true 7-footer, 25 years old. Despite being 25 years old, has not played in the NBA or G League at all. So took a how do you say that word? Certiculate. Oh my God.
What?
You know what I mean? When it's like all around root. A root that's all around. There's a word for that.
A circular?
No, it's like certicular or something. I'm going to cut my losses. Took an unusual route to get to this point.
Certicular is not a word.
It's something like that. Certiculous?
Oh, wait.
I swear I've heard this used. What is autocorrect giving you anything?
No. Autocorrect's giving me curricular,
I'll try to look it up later. Went to Drake at first, not exactly a basketball powerhouse, and like didn't start hot there. Was a backup who averaged like 4 and 3 per game. Then got the starting role.
He had a 29 and 7 blocks game with the stomach flu.
I see we're both on the wiki right now, which was the program single game record for blocks. He is a big time shot blocker, has scored a lot, rebounded. He set a school record for 99 total blocks with Drake, was also 5th in the nation at his blocks per game. Somehow he was second team all Missouri Valley Conference, but was all defensive team, most improved team and all tournament team. Then went to Minnesota, a much more real school. He had a 27, 14, and 5 block game against Ohio State in 2021, was a Big Ten Player of the Week. Missed the final 6 games of the season with a sprained ankle. This will become a theme, which is the reason why we don't know anything about him yet. But then as a junior, led the Big Ten in blocks per game, averaged 11.7 points, 6.6 rebounds as well. And then Rich Pitino got fired, so he switched schools again, going with his uncle Ed Conroy, who's an assistant NCAA coach, to the Vanderbilt Commodores, everyone's favorite SEC team to rebuild on the new NCAA football game. Missed the first several months of the season, but then came back for his 5th year and played a full year, averaged 15 points, 6.8 rebounds, and 3.2 blocks per game. But then on March 2, 2023, leg injury early in the game, missed the rest of the season. Still won the 22-23 SEC Defensive Player of the Year award. Again, not as real of a conference in basketball, still a real conference. Like in the Big Ten and the SEC, was a pretty elite shot blocking defensive center. Then did not get drafted in 23. Again, I'm sure the injury played some into that in the injury history. Signed with the Pelicans. They waived him before the year to be an Exhibit 10 player. So he reported to the squadron, but suffered a season-ending injury on January 12th, 2024, and did not play at all for the squadron. So really has been snake-bitten by injuries.
Never played a minute.
No, we have no professional stats. Yeah, no professional stats at all.
So here's my question.
Yeah.
Why did he not play with the squadron?
I know.
Before
there's a gap there. I'm just gonna have to ask him. I don't think there's any reporting on this. I don't understand that at all. Like I can't imagine. I wonder if it was like a nagging thing that
maybe
that got to him. Oh, here we go. There's a medical update. Wiki might just be wrong. The Pelicans put out he had a stress reaction in his right fibula. The Pels put this out on October 4th. So I wonder if that just like wasn't healing and he got ruled out or something like that. So there was something starting the season that was affecting him, so he didn't get to play. So that makes more sense. I was wondering that too. Like, there's no way you have an Exhibit 10 7-footer and they just couldn't crack the squadron rotation. No offense to the Birmingham squadron. So this guy needs to stay healthy. He, I guess, is on the right team to learn how to do that, hopefully, because that's something a lot of the Bucks are concerned with right now. But when he's been on the court has been like a very impactful shot blocking defensive center. Like SEC Defensive Player of the Year, led the Big Ten in blocks. That's like a very exciting player, but I almost just don't want to get my hopes up too much. Not just because of like what it's going to look like on the court. We'll see if the injuries have taken a toll on him, but also just like how much is he going to be able to play? That's going to be the big question for Liam Robbins, not just with us, but like if you're an NBA team considering him for a two-way slot, that's probably what the Bucks are worried about. Like they've seen AP get through professional seasons. They haven't even seen Liam Robbins start one.
Exactly. Like that's the big question is, are you capable of playing basketball right now? Like that is the biggest question for Liam Robbins. And it's a very valid question. Like you should be, if you want to think about Liam Robbins as a guy, it's like, oh, this is a 7-footer, he's a shot blocker. Maybe he can be a Bucks big man in the future. It's like, okay, one, can he play basketball?
Yeah.
That's big question number one. Big question number two, if you can play basketball, can you do it at a high level?
Yeah.
Like, can you literally hang on a professional level? Because we don't know.
We don't.
We genuinely don't know.
I'm really excited to
find out.
Yeah. This is, I think, to me, the most enticing of their Exhibit 10 contracts this year.
Literally a mystery box of a player.
Yeah, I mean, if you hit on him, I think like the tools he's shown, the size, the frame, like that is at least like, not starting, but that's like an NBA player. A 7-footer who's going to record a lot of blocks per game, is mobile enough to do that, and was like a big-time scorer as well at the college level. Was not just like a 5-point per game player. I can't wait. Obviously you hope every player stays healthy, but really in this case, like a guy who's never been able to show what he can do at the pro level, you really, really hope. And two, like, going into his draft, you go out in March and miss the tournament, there's your opportunity, right? Whether it's the conference tournament, I don't know if they made the NCAA that year, probably not because it was Vanderbilt, but like even the conference tournament, a big conference tournament can absolutely move you up to the second round or something. Didn't get the opportunity to do that either. So, I mean, has beaten some big time programs in college basketball. We just haven't seen enough, but I can't wait. Like, I'm really excited about the Liam Robbins experience here in Oshkosh. And I think this is the player, too, who, if you think, if AP still looks like a not really NBA level player at 28 on the two-way, this is a guy who I think could earn that spot if he is able to just prove he can play and do the things he did in college.
100%. Because one thing that Liam Robbins shares with AP is that he is also good at being big.
Yeah, they're both good at being big, which is rare. But the Bucks have another guy too.
They do have another guy who's also good at being big, and that's Ibu Baji. A familiar name. He's been with the Bucks in training camp and played with the Herd the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
And then poached by the Trailblazers on the two-way for the last 2 seasons. Yeah. Let's see if it's the year number 3.
I mean, they have so many centers. I can't imagine they're going to do it again.
But it'd be really funny if they did. So the thing about Ibu Baji is that unlike Liam Robbins and James Akinjo, he has already been waived. He signed his Exhibit 10 and then was waived already. So you can see, you can expect to see him report for the Herd. So he's not going to be a part of Bucks training camp, which is just so odd.
I wonder if he is suffering from an injury, because then it would make sense.
He had an injury in March of last year.
That was last year.
That was last year.
He had knee surgery. I think this was also a previous year. Oh, yeah, that was 2 years ago. He has struggled with injuries too, suffice it to say. Baji is a 7-footer who came from FC Barcelona / Senegal originally, an extremely raw player still, even coming into his 3rd season, I would say. Has struggled with staying on the court, has only played or logged, I think, 26 total G League games, 13 with the Herd. I don't trust the G League website, by the way. So if these numbers are wrong, that's on the G League website. But did not play much more with, actually played the same amount of games with Portland. So 26 total, 13 with each. And has been mostly the same player in each of those stints. A lot of, not many points. 7.4 in his first Herd stint, but then down to 3.5. 5 with the Rip City Remix, which is Portland's team. Good amount of rebounds, ton of blocks, also a ton of fouls. So despite playing his average, last year across stints with the Herd and the Remix, 19 minutes per game, 4.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 2.7 blocks, and 2.5 fouls. So it's just going up to get everything and is either getting the player or the ball 50% of the time and is getting called for it a lot of the time as well. Pretty raw player offensively. Shot a really high percent from the field, 67% last season, but it's because it's basically he's taking shots at the rim, has not attempted a 3-pointer. So is kind of your more rim running athletic big man, just needs to be refined more. We'll see how he looks coming into this season. I guess we won't see him in preseason or anything like that because I did waive him already. He did have a hip contusion. This was back in January. I can't imagine that's still relevant. So yeah, I don't know why exactly they waived Baji right away, but will be expected with the Herd unless the Blazers poach him even earlier this year. But again, I really hope they don't do it again because they have so many centers on that NBA roster.
It'd be really fun to do it for the bit if you're the Portland Trailblazers.
It's we can't get enough of this guy once you guys sign him.
Hilarious commitment to the bit. But it's at what point just have him on your G League team immediately.
I don't know why
what they do it.
I don't know why
him doing Exhibit 10.
Well, I wonder at the beginning, did they not even? I don't remember when their team started. They're one of the newest teams to get a team. He did play 22 games with Portland last year. Dear God, Portland. 10 minutes per game. Scored a 1.5, had almost 1 block per game and 2.1 fouls per game. So again, can score a little bit. I mean, the 1.5 points isn't ideal, but shot 63% from the field. So can put it in the hoop from close range and then just blocks and fouls a ton.
See, also the good thing that he shares with Liam Robbins and AP is he's also good at being big.
Big guy.
And he's shown that he can actually play NBA basketball. If what Portland was doing last year counts, that's a different question. However, but he's technically done it. That's better than Liam Robbins literally hasn't played professional basketball. He's also way younger than either of them. Like he's 21 years old.
Yeah, that
The
part
problem
is real.
Do his hands work is a question.
Yeah,
I've seen him fumble the ball a lot. It's like he's got the Thon Maker hands.
Yeah, that may even be insulting to Thon too. That's the level we're talking about.
Sorry,
here.
Thon.
Yeah,
like that's this most glaring flaw aside from just being like a super raw prospect is like he just puts on butter like on his hands. Like instead of like chalk, he just puts butter.
Yeah. It's an exciting guy to watch for a lot of reasons. I will put it this way: I'm not hopeful, even in like the universe where Ibu develops as much as possible. I don't think would be a good fit for the Bucks still. Like I'm excited they're bringing him back to the Herd. I'm excited the Herd are just like getting a lot of big guys to try out at least, or inevitably one or two will get poached and you'll still be able to maintain some level of big play. It's really important at the G League level and at all levels. But like I could not see like even idealized Ibu Baji does not feel like a starter for the Bucks at the 5. And Robbins probably doesn't either. Actually, although I think shot like 36% his last year at Vandy from 3. I don't know if you have it up. Let me see if I can get this back up quickly to make sure I'm not way wrong on that. But I'm pretty sure he actually took them and made a solid percentage. It's been a while, so we'll see now. Yeah, like attempted threes every year was in the 20s with Drake, but then by his last year, so it's a small sample, but did shoot 36.5% with Vandy.
36.5%. 19 total threes made.
Yeah, so has not shot a lot, but again, like it's been 2 years since then, or a year plus since then.
Not the best free throw shooter.
Yeah, not historically good. Let me see, what are they? Oh yeah, but again, 73% that last year. Actually, it's been okay. Just below 70%.
What do you mean? That's not good. Like Giannis has warped our perception on what a good free throw shooter is.
I mean, I think there's a lot of bigs who are not. There's a lot of bigs who are well below 70%.
Yeah, and we don't consider them good 3-point shooters.
Free throw shooters, but yeah.
No, I'm saying like that in terms of translating. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying don't get your hopes too high on him being
too late. Too late. He's him.
You're really in on these Midwest
guys. We just need
guys.
Ed Conroy on the Herd coaching staff, and we're all set.
Hey, you know what? Knowing the Bucks, they might do. Why not? Honestly, they would need any excuse to add a third row of assistants on the back.
Ed Conroy finished what he started. He was at the Citadel 06-10. Now he's back at the Citadel in 2022 as the head coach.
Good for
you can't keep Ed Conroy out of the Citadel. South Carolina is where the Citadel. I never knew. Philip Alston's the last Exhibit 10 player. Earned it also, I'd say, or not also. This is the only Exhibit 10 player who I'd say earned it through Summer League. He played 3 games with the Summer Bucks. Only really played minutes, and he started the last game and had a pretty good game. I remember having fun with it. Overall, though, did not shoot the ball very well from 3. Did not do much outside of that one start. Although again, he was definitely good in that game. Went to Loyola most recently after going to. This is a new one. The California University of Pennsylvania.
That's not a real school.
That
can't be.
He averaged 20 points per game in 21-22 for the California. Which state is this in? They're probably the Vulcans. Is there a California, Pennsylvania?
No.
There is a California, Pennsylvania.
Wow. See, I would try to find it on his Wikipedia. So I go to Wikipedia, right? And I go Philip Alston.
Here we go.
The first thing that comes up is Philip Jeffrey Alston is an Australian international law scholar and human rights practitioner. But also, the good thing about Wikipedia is that it says, if you want to search for someone else. And it's like, okay, for the first option, for the 18th century counterfeiter, see Philip Alston, parentheses, counterfeiter. For the American lawyer and diplomat, see Philip H. Alston. He's not a top 3 Philip Alston. Do you have
one L, though? Are you doing one L or 2 L's?
It's one L.
Brutal.
He's not a top 3 Philip Alston with 1 L.
Yeah.
That's my analysis.
I have an update.
Okay.
The University of California, Pennsylvania realized this was very confusing and they rebranded to Pennsylvania Western University, California. Actually, it's not that much less confusing.
It's not that much better.
Actually, I think it's worse.
Take
now
the California out.
Because now you're thinking,
what are you doing? You freaking Vulcans, what are you doing?
The western part makes it seem more like it's in actual California, which is famously much farther west than Pennsylvania.
I don't get it.
Dude, these guys are addicted to changing their names. They have had 5 different names. This is the progression.
And they still haven't found a good one.
Oh, I think they were better. The Southwestern Normal School, starting in 1874. The California State Normal School. No, way off with the second one. California State Normal School, so confusing.
In Pennsylvania?
California State Teachers College. California State College, and then they, in 1983, added in the Pennsylvania. And then in 2022, took another step back, I'd say, to Pennsylvania Western University, California. Abbreviated as Penn West, California.
Oh, man. On that note, I think we're just about wrapped up here. But we're excited to see all of these players.
Do you have any expectation for all we talked about was his school and his?
That's all I got.
That's
all I got on Philip Alston.
He's a good. He's a wing player. Yep. He needs to prove a lot, especially shooting the ball. But good athleticism, moved well. We'll see.
We shall see, indeed. But yeah, excited to see training camp is just a few weeks away. And then we got preseason basketball in a few weeks. It's all coming up really soon, and we'll have you covered for all things Bucks here on the Gyro Step and all over GSPN. Thank you for listening to this episode presented by PrizePicks. Appreciate you listening. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening, watching this podcast platform of choice, YouTube, and subscribe to GSPN Premium. Go to gspn.info to not only find links to all things GSPN pods, but you can unlock a subscription for commercial-free feeds, exclusive podcasts, bonus written content, other fun stuff, all that $8 a month. And we would appreciate if you find out. It's fun. But also, if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You can still listen to this. But you could be listening to it better.
Yeah.
Food for thought. But yeah.
Yummy.
Appreciate you listening. Pod Random. We'll talk to you next time.